in order to diagnose the strengths and weaknesses of each developing reader or writer, prescribe a plan of action to accommodate each student's unique needs, and engage each child in learning experiences to enhance their ability to construct meaning from print, the teacher has to internalize a well-organized conceptual framework of the multiple factors that impact the reading-writing process. A conceptual framework enables teachers to organize individual pieces of knowledge and helps them to remember, recall, and apply that knowledge automatically as they assess, plan, and implement instruction. This chart identifies the various skills that are involved in the reading process. Such a chart can serve as a conceptual framework for assessing reading strengths and needs, as well as serve as a curriculum map for planning reading instruction. Teaching always begins with acquiring knowledge about each student. Thus, before a teacher can effectively plan instruction, he must first consider each student's prior experiences with language in all its forms: spoken, listening, written, and usage. In other words, a teacher must ask, what does the student already know about the form and function of language? Reading and writing are cognitive processes that require a vast array of neuronal connections. Changes in growth in cognition or mental processing occur over time as a result of heredity and experience. Obviously, students have not all constructed identical neuronal pathways in the brain. Therefore, there can never be a one-size-fits-all approach to language instruction. Preparation for reading begins long before the potential reader encounters words on a page. Experience with sound, speech, and verbal communication enables the individual to acquire an understanding that sounds are joined together to form words that name objects in the physical world and that express feelings, desires, and ideas in the affective and cognitive realms. These early experiences with oral language enable the child to develop a network of verbal skills and understandings that help her communicate with others. As she becomes more efficient with verbal speech and acquires a deeper understanding of the physical world, she alters the neuronal connections in her brain. The development of oral language skills enhances cognition and learning. Through speech, children acquire an interest in the sounds of language. They become aware that words are composed of discrete sounds and eventually connect words and sounds with print. Research consistently validates that there is a direct link between language skills and thinking and learning. Long before children learn to read and write, oral language serves as their vehicle for learning and expressing their thoughts and feelings. As a student becomes proficient in other literacy skills, oral language through monologue or dialogue is the most frequent means for extending thinking and understanding, and provides a window into a reader's previous experience and conceptual connections. Oral language skills include both speaking and listening. Diagnosis of oral language skills primarily focuses on fluency, articulation, clarity, pragmatics, expression, and the depth and breadth of the student's oral vocabulary. Each of these competencies is directly related to the ability to read fluently with understanding and to write with clarity. Therefore, it is critical that a teacher assess the oral language competency of each student. Such assessment is normally done through informal conversation, through observation, anecdotal evidence, and through the use of checklists. Listening skills also impact future literacy development. Although it may seem unusual to be talking about listening skills in relationship to reading and writing, the ability to listen to stories and information and to listen and participate in discussions is related to the motivation, interest, and evaluation of reading experiences. Listening for and attending to the variances in the sounds and structure of oral language prepares students for the ability to translate speech to print. The goal for listening varies with the circumstance, and students must apply different listening strategies to different listening situations. For example, students may listen for pleasure, listen to learn, listen to acquire information, or listen to make a judgment. In each of these situations, a different set of skills must be applied in order to achieve the intended goal. Listening competencies are impacted by auditory perceptual capabilities, distractibility, motivation, interest, and clarity of purpose. Affective development refers to the processes of individuation and socialization influenced by heredity and experiences that impact social and emotional changes that occur in an individual over time. Affective attributes shape how one perceives himself and how he relates to others. Thus, an individual's interpersonal and intrapersonal skills are greatly impacted by affective development. The elements of affective development that have considerable influence on reading competency include motivation, interest, and self-esteem. Physical development refers to the changes that occur in the growth, functions, and needs of the body relative to age, heredity, environment, behavior, and trauma. There are 4 major divisions of development associated with the physical domain: health, growth, safety, and behavior. Aspects of physical development that influence a child's academic achievement include musculoskeletal growth, organic development such as brain and other organs, psychomotor development, which includes sensory, motor, and other perceptual skills, and self-care awareness. Of particular concern in physical development to academic achievement are the critical periods associated with the natural acquisition of certain abilities. For example, research has validated that early in life there are critical periods connected to a child's acquisition of the phonemes associated with his native language. At birth, the human is capable of attending to and articulating any sound in any language. However, the infant almost immediately begins to focus on those sounds in his immediate environment and eventually loses the ability to form the sounds in other languages with as much ease and accuracy as he had at birth. The concept of critical periods has been hotly debated. However, research has validated that there are periods of development that facilitate the acquisition of particular skills. Lack of opportunity to acquire a skill during a particular phase of development makes the acquisition of a skill much more difficult. But lack of opportunity early in life is no longer considered an indelible loss. Although it is true that lack of early experience puts an individual on a catch-up track and influences typical development until the child does catch up. The danger for the child is the potential of encountering a teacher who does not understand the importance and value of diagnosis for planning diversified instruction. Instruction must be tailored to the child's current strengths and weaknesses. Thus, instruction must be individually appropriate, not simply age appropriate. Areas of physical development of particular importance to reading include the development of the brain and the sensory organs. The complexity of the reading process and the necessity for simultaneous responding to multiple stimuli requires a healthy brain, speech organs, eyes, and ears. Underdeveloped neurotransmitters and abnormal chemical reactions to stimuli will interfere with the mental translation of symbols to meaning and the ability to connect previous learning with new knowledge. The inability to distinguish between sounds will interfere with the ability to use sound-symbol relationships to identify unfamiliar words. And the inability to recall a pattern of letters seen in print interferes with the development of a sight vocabulary. Children with perceptual disabilities and minimal brain dysfunctions can learn to read, but the teacher must allow the time and the pace that the child needs for learning. A major problem occurs when teachers across grades don't collaborate to provide the learning opportunities required by the child at the pace he needs. For example, if phonemic awareness has to be achieved by the end of kindergarten because the first grade teacher doesn't teach the skills necessary to acquire it, then the child who didn't have the time for mastery in kindergarten is left behind and is on his own, trying to make sense out of the translation of spoken language into print. Psychomotor skills are impacted by both cognitive and physical development, but the point of origin for such skills lies in the physical domain with the sensory organs and the brain. The psychomotor skills of particular importance to reading and writing are visual and auditory discrimination skills and some of the coordination abilities. Visual discrimination skills include visual acuity, visual tracking, visual memory, figure ground differentiation, and visual constancy. Visual acuity is the ability to see clearly, to distinguish form and fine details. For example, the ability to distinguish between a circle and a square, between a B and a D, and to select the small object from a group of objects of varying sizes require visual acuity. Visual tracking is the ability to follow symbols or objects with coordinated eye movements. For example, the ability to follow a line of print across the page and then sweep back to the beginning of the next line is a visual tracking skill. Visual memory is the ability to recall from memory past visual experiences. For example, the ability to draw from memory any of the geometric symbols and writing the alphabet or a word require visual memory. Figure ground differentiation refers to the learner's ability to select the dominant figure from the surrounding background. For example, the ability to focus on the individual words embedded in connected text requires figure ground differentiation. Visual constancy is the ability to be consistent in the interpretation when viewing the same type of object. For example, the ability to identify the letter B regardless of where it is located on a page, its color, size, or font requires visual constancy. Auditory discrimination skills include auditory acuity, auditory tracking, and auditory memory. Auditory acuity refers to the learner's ability to receive and differentiate between various sounds and their corresponding pitch and intensity. For example, the ability to identify the vowel and consonant sounds in a spoken word and the ability to distinguish non-speech sounds such as environmental noises, tones, and music require auditory acuity. Auditory tracking refers to the student's ability to distinguish the direction of a sound and to follow it. For example, the ability to turn to the person who is speaking requires auditory tracking. Auditory memory is the learner's ability to recognize and produce post-auditory experiences. For example, the ability to recite a previously heard nursery rhyme, recall the names of people just introduced, play from memory a song on a musical instrument, and to repeat the alphabet require auditory memory skills. Coordination skills require the coordination of two or more of the perceptual abilities and movement patterns. Eye-hand coordination is of particular importance to the development of literacy skills, especially to writing and drawing activities. A learner who has good eye-hand coordination can select an object from its surrounding background using figure ground perception and coordinate the visually perceived object with a manipulative movement, such as filling in the small circles on a test or hitting a thrown ball out of the park. A final personal attribute that influences literacy development is world knowledge. Exposure to print and opportunities for interaction with others in conversation contribute to oral vocabulary growth and general knowledge. New experiences and the opportunity to explore the environment develop new ideas and expand understanding. These experiences vary among students and must be part of a learner's profile if a teacher is to build upon what students know, can do, and appreciate. Comprehension of written works is influenced by the foundational knowledge base of students.